Good morning, good afternoon, and good day wherever you may be joining us from. Welcome to another edition of The Digital Download, the longest running weekly business talk show on LinkedIn Live, now globally syndicated on TuneIn Radio. Today, we're turning dough into deals. This week, we have a special guest, as one of our panelists will be serving as our special guest.
Serving.
Bertrand
I see what
Godot.
you did there.
Yeah, you see what I did there.
Yeah.
Bertrand will demonstrate his baguette baking skills live, making this episode a unique blend of professional insights and culinary delights. Bertrand will reveal how the meticulous attention to detail in baking can translate into successful sales techniques. But before we begin, let's go around and introduce everyone. While we're doing that, why don't you in the audience reach out to a friend, ping them, and have them join us? We strive to make the digital download an interactive experience. Audience participation is highly encouraged. And with that, Adam, would you kick us off, please?
Hi, everybody. I'm Adam Gray. I'm co-founder of DLA Ignite. I'm myself an amateur bread baker, so I cannot tell you how excited I am to watch this, to see how a master does this.
Excellent. Thank you. Tim.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I'm famous for writing the book Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Change Makers. And I am so excited to be in the first ever bread making LinkedIn Live. Groundbreaking social media. This is what we do here.
This is what we do here. Myself, I'm Rob Durant, founder of Flywheel Results, a proud DLA Ignite partner. And I too am excited for this. I love that this group is always willing to experiment. This should be fun. As I said, this week on the Digital Download, we'll be in the kitchen with Bertrand. So without further ado, let's have him tell us about what's going on. Bertrand, please introduce yourself first and foremost, and then let us know what we've got regarding bread baking.
Great.
Oh, thank you, Rob, and thank you, team, for the opportunity. I can't believe I'm going to do that, but the good news is it's Friday, and on Friday there are this Friday there are two things that I'm going to talk about, and two things that I really enjoy. The first one is making bread. The second one is making deals. So with no further ado, I am the founder of Odysseus & Co., who is a very proud DLA partner here in France. Deals is about ingredients, and for the sake of time, I propose that we get started. So here we've got some wheat flour, we've got salt, and we've got yeast. So basically, this is the active ingredients. So this is what the sales team. This is the sales team. This is the product, and this is the services potentially. And then now I'm gonna put a little bit of water in this, and that's storytelling. And this is the first time all of these ingredients are gonna be meeting each other, and that's something that, as you can see, we do quite delicately. So that
and it's important to wash your hands as well in sales, isn't it?
Yes, of course. Been done before. Although French people, you never know. But I've done that before. So it's basically, you can see it's really roughly mixing the ingredients. We just want the water to be really in contact, create the relationship between all of these ingredients.
So you're creating a sticky dough there, aren't you, around your hand?
Yes, and you do that with one end only, so you keep the other one clean, right?
Right.
Because you're going to have to
that's
rid of the dough on the other end.
Yeah.
So I'm really doing that quite as you can see, there is no willingness to really create anything special here apart from mixing ingredients.
I'm
So it's a little
amazed
bit like when you meet someone the first time, you don't pitch, right? So that's exactly what we're doing here. We're just trying to see if this can work. If
It's
this is a
incredible how
relationship
quickly
that
it's
can
come
work.
together, isn't it?
Yes, so that's mainly due to the quality of the wheat and the flour. So we're doing here a traditional French baguette with organic flour. Is it flour or flour? I can't make the difference, to be honest.
Flour.
Either.
And then so we're done basically. So that's really
So Bertrand's currently
It's pretty
scraping the dough off his fingers. It's a sticky, very sticky.
it's pretty sticky. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the worst case scenario because for that specific, I will give the recipe by the way. So we used
So the recipe will be in the show notes, will it?
will be exactly.
Okay, excellent.
It's you know the key challenge here is to have at least for that exercise, and because we do this manually, you need to make sure that
I don't know about you, Bertrand. Well, it's probably not for you because you're French. But as a Brit coming to France, there's nothing like getting a fresh baguette.
Yes.
Usually sitting by some water somewhere and getting some cheese, so some fromage, and some saucisson, and sitting there and just breaking the bread and hearing it crunch and the smell of it,
yeah,
and getting a nice runny brie
a
or
nice,
something
a
on the
nice,
bread.
a
I mean,
nice-
it's
some nice
it's-
butter. So
it's
here
one of the reasons to go to France, isn't it?
exactly. So we're done here, right?
Okay.
I'm just closing this, and we start and we go for 10 minutes.
So you've just started the clock for that was the beep.
So the
And
good
what does
news
that
is
that do for 10 minutes then, Bertrand?
it works. It works for itself, basically. It
Okay.
works for us. So that's the great stuff about doing things manually. Is you need more time, but there is less effort actually.
Right.
So what we're going to do here is leave this alone for 10 minutes so that all of the ingredients meet each other, right? So the relationship is about to be created here. It's actually in the process of being created. This is a little bit like the first meeting in sales. So you are.
So I can eat it now?
Sorry?
I can eat it now? I want bread now. I can eat it now.
I've got my quarter to do.
No, you can't. There are things that we're working on leading stuff, right? So the influence of humidity, the influence of heat, all of that is important, and you will notice if you go on the path of actually making bread, that the weather is quite important. So is the moon. The dough will behave very differently under different circumstances, right? So again, there's lots of analogy into how this works compared to how sales works. And we can
I want to confirm, you said this is going to sit for about 10 minutes. As we look at it right now, you've got it in the pan and covered. The dough itself is in the center of the pan, and about a quarter of the pan is empty to the left of it, and a quarter of the pan is empty to the right. It'll be interesting to see what it looks like in 10 minutes. Or
it will not really change, to be honest, because there's not enough time for fermentation. Is it fermentation?
Right.
To occur.
From a sales perspective, this is about bringing the sales team, the client, the messaging together and having a conversation.
Exactly. And then once that conversation has occurred, then time is required for everybody to digest, to think about what's been said, and that is unfortunately something you can't compress. This is not like this is not a sequence. This is not week 1 first email, week 2 second email, week 3 third email. This is a little bit of a conversation that these guys are having right now, and that conversation will lead to probably questions and maybe appetite for more relationship, which is what we're going to do into a little bit more than 6 minutes right now, from now.
I think that one of the things that's amazing about this is that the success of the finished product is based on timing at the rate of the client, not at the rate of you wanting to eat it, and also the quality of what's involved, the quality of the ingredients. If you haven't got a clear message, if you haven't got good people involved, then you'll end up with a catastrophic loaf of bread. You'll end up with a loaf of mother's pride or something.
That's a very fair point, Adam. Actually, you can win or lose from that stage. At that stage, you can win or lose very early in making bread, and I think it's very similar in the business. What we've used here, by the way, just to talk a little bit about the ingredients, I talked about yeast. We're using yeast because it goes faster. It's an active ingredient, but it's an active ingredient which anybody can source, right? So we could all use the exact same yeast, right? Which is very different if you show the other camera, Rob, to sourdough. So this is Albert. This is my sourdough.
Albert, your sourdough starter.
My sourdough starter. Yeah, exactly. And you can see he's pretty active right now. The only challenge with Albert is that he needs 5 hours to actually get anything done or get started. But the other,
I know salespeople like that.
The other interesting thing with Albert is that he's drinking beer. So he's only drinking beer. So that's time.
When you
I know salespeople like that too.
Yeah. So when you refresh the starter, you put in some of the starter, some more flour, and not water but beer.
Yes. And the good news is that this is unique. This Albert is unique.
And that. So what you've got there is a jar, and what you're doing is that you're growing yeast in that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's natural. That's really natural. That is a natural, not only natural, but it's unique. It's unique to Albert. Al for the friends. All right. So. And the other thing is, if you were I've taken the let's say my starting point is that you all wanted French baguettes. Of course, if I have my kids, I will make baguettes. If I've got my friends, then I will probably use a different mix of ingredients because they enjoy different bread than just baguette. Interestingly enough, so there is again the context is important. Not only who's going to be around the table, but also what is it that you're going to eat. So that if we look for a specific bread for cheese, then I'll probably use a very old type of wheat, actually going back to the Egyptians. So because that's a little bit more sour, and therefore with the fat of the cheese, that's a perfect marriage. So there's lots of things that you need to think about when you are actually entering this whole world of making bread, right?
So, do you find making bread is good for the soul? You know, very soothing and relaxing.
Yes, it's definitely a good break in the week, because I do that once a week. Sometimes more if we've got some pretty some weekends and some evenings with friends. I'm actually the official supplier of bread now. It's been a long time now. So, but yes, it's and getting to the point where you want to get.
So
before the 10 minutes are up, I want to recap the first step for our audience. The step one is preparation and planning. Just as baking a perfect baguette requires gathering the right ingredients and following a detailed recipe, a successful sales process starts with thorough preparation. This involves understanding the market, researching potential clients, and developing a clear strategy. Is that what we've covered so far?
Yeah, I couldn't have said better. So I think we can go back now to do the second part of the process, which is basically creating the network, so the gluten network. So if you can see now, so it's already changed. The dough has already changed the texture. So I'm putting a little bit of wheat here, and then we go and get that stuff.
So the cutting board, the surface you'll be working on, you covered with wheat flour. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not always necessary, but just for the sake of making this easier, it depends actually on your on the dough. The more you're gonna get into the more water you put, the less wheat you need to use. Actually, it's counterintuitive, but manipulating very sticky dough should be done not with wheat, but with water. So here what we want to do is the process of kneading. So you just take the dough here. I'm doing that slowly, but it should be done very fast. So
you're stretching,
you put it and then move it forward, okay? And then you turn 45 degrees and start again. Okay, I'm doing that. So pulling and then going back. And as you can see, I don't know if you see it, but it's already changing. And we're going to do that for 3 minutes. Sometimes it's less.
So this is changing the molecular structure of the.
We are creating the gluten network. So obviously, for people who are not tolerant to gluten, intolerant to gluten, or gluten intolerant, that's not the right recipe, right?
Okay, so if you're gluten intolerant, look away right now.
Exactly. So as you can see, so it's pretty brutal actually, but so we're trying to put it and then roll it back.
And what's this got to do with the sales process?
So that's basically the time where you are actually strengthening the relationship.
Right.
So it's either by discussing, talking about value props, talking about business cases, doing demos, really treating the.
But not throwing the customer on the floor or anything like that.
No. No, I agree. That no, you should not do that as brutally as I'm doing it right now.
For those listening only on the audio podcast, this is not the pipeline review meeting.
Okay, I think you know what? I think it's good enough, right? So look at this now.
So what Bertrand's done is he's banged the the
completely changed now.
yeah, and it's completely changed in terms of the texture.
It's
it's
kind
now
of
a ball.
silky now, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
silky and smooth and
Exactly.
firm.
And you know what? There is no real rule for that. So is it 3 minutes? Is it 5 minutes? That really depends on your view of the world. And as you can see, I don't know if you see this, but
Yeah, it's very springy, isn't it?
if I put my finger here, it comes back.
It just springs back out.
Yes. So it means the network is already pretty good, right? And what we're going to do is, again, leave this here and forget it for another 10 minutes.
So Bertrand's putting it in his plastic box, and he's put the lid on it.
And that's another 10 minutes. And then you will do that. You will do the exact same kneading again. Then wait for another 10 minutes. And then do the exact same exercise again. That's really to your. This is where intuition, or you could say, it's a mix of intuition and experience.
Intuition, experience. In sales, we call that the art and the science, right?
Exactly. And it's really where you're going to assess whether you need to go for one more or two is enough. And that's basically really, I would say, your perspective as an experienced sales or pre-sales person to know where to stop. Because if we overwork this, that could also lead to a disaster. So you could win or lose in the first part of in the ingredient mix, but you can also kill your bread at that stage.
So Bertrand, I've always considered myself not a chef. I can't cook because cooking involves knowing those intricacies, knowing the art of when it needs a pinch of that and a little more of this. But I've always thought, well, I can follow recipes, and baking is pretty much just following recipes. But even here, you're telling me this requires a level of experience to be good at it. What does somebody who's starting out do?
Well, it requires practice. It's not so much.
Bless you.
Thank you. I've got some flour up on this.
Yeah, God bless you. It's not so much. It's more practice, to be honest. We've all been trained to sales methodologies. I'm actually training myself some kids around spin. If you don't practice it, you forget it, or you're less accurate. So it's exactly the same here. Regardless of if you've got the best ingredients, if you are not if you're not careful enough, if you are not practicing enough, you'll forget it. Right. So what we've done so far is basically mixing ingredients and then creating the network, strengthening the network. And once we've done that part, which is basically what, from my perspective, a customer needs to actually go under the process of making decisions, then you need to structure. So the way we do this is by dividing. So the dough that I just needed after 2 or 3 runs, we'll go ahead and divide it. To me, it's a little bit like as a salesperson, you need to understand is my customer able to eat this as one piece, or do I need to chunk it? So that's the first part of it. And then we'll make that decision. We'll say, okay, we make 3 baguettes. right? So we need to divide this by 3, but we could actually do 1 baguette and then 1 bâtard, which is a big baguette, and then maybe we end up with 2 pieces of bread.
What's a big baguette?
Sorry?
What's a big baguette?
A bâtard in French.
Ah, right.
That's the big one. That's the 500 grams, I think, or 600.
All right. So just to recap where we are at now in the sales process, this is the part where we wanted to speak about the attention to detail. The process of mixing the ingredients, kneading the dough, and allowing it to rise demands careful attention to detail. Similarly, in sales, every interaction from the initial contact to closing the deal requires meticulous attention to the client's needs and responses.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then we're now ready to actually structure everything. So that's, if you could say that, so far we've done almost a pre-sales job, a sales and pre-sales job. What we're going to do now is moving really into the area, the added value of a salesperson. And that's what, from my perspective, is the analogy of shaping. So that's what we're going to do now, right?
Before we go to that, Bertrand, let me ask you, I know we're going to do some time-lapse techniques here. You've prepared some things in advance, but if we were just doing this with one initial set of ingredients, what kind of timeline are we looking at?
So you really need, so that's a good question. Actually, you could do bread in 2 hours. There are techniques that allow you to do bread in less than 2 hours. The main difference in time is taste. The shaping is pretty much the same. The shape will be pretty much the same, but the taste will be very different.
The quality of the final output?
Exactly. You can't rush. If you want to rush, you're going to get some bread, for sure, but you're going to get an average low bread.
So before we move on to...
my favorite
go ahead.
is actually takes a little bit more than 24 hours.
Ah, brilliant.
So,
I'm
the
glad
taste
you
is really different.
shared that. Yeah. So before we move on to what you're going to share next, just to recap, this part of the sales process is about patience and timing. Allowing the dough to rise and bake properly takes time, and rushing can ruin the final product. In sales, building relationships and trust with clients often takes time, and pushing too hard can jeopardize the deal.
Exactly. That's exactly what we said, Rob. So let's move to shaping. So I have prepared, as you said, 3, and you can go back to
Yes,
to the other camera. So I've prepared 3. I've divided. I've made some bowls, I think, and now I'm actually ready to shape. So shaping is where we're going to give the final form to the bread. So what we're going to do is flatten the dough so that it's now a circle, right? I take the upper part of the dough, and what I'm going to do is put it on the middle, right? And then with that piece of my hand, I'm gonna seal it. Okay.
So you folded it in a third, bringing the top towards the middle, and then with the what was that? The palm of your hand, the base of your thumb, the heel of your hand.
You seal it.
You seal it. Okay.
And then what you do is you just flip it around, and then do the same with the other piece, the other part, and seal it.
So you rotated it 180 degrees. Yeah. You took what is now the top and folded that third onto the base, and again with the heel of your thumb sealed it.
And we can start to see, by the way, the shape of the baguette. So it's always good to have a small stuff like that to remove the extra flour. And then with my thumb, so I put my thumb here, and same thing with my, and so I do this. So I fold it, and then I seal it. So the
So
whole
now
purpose
you're
of this-
slowly folding it in half and again sealing it with the heel of your thumb.
okay, and then I just so it's already it's almost ready, right? So the only thing we need to do now is roll it so that it gets the final shape.
Now
Okay?
this I've done, but with Play-Doh.
Right. And then so you can see this, the sealing is here. So what I do is I just take it and put it aside on the seal, right?
So you've now put it on a baking tray with some
On the baking
grease.
tray. I'm really, the idea is that you could try it, right? So I'm keeping this as simple as I can, right? So we're doing this just on a single sheet. We're gonna put the 3 of them on the same sheet, right? And go for it. So second one, same thing. Removing the extra dough. So you're basically structuring your deal here, right? So is it gonna be, so that's the final shape of the deal, right? Same thing, flipping it around, sealing it, and then the thumb and seal on the edge. Okay.
So with the second third of the dough, you've done the same process and
Yeah, I'm
rolling
gonna
it out
do the same.
elongates it.
I could try something different, but we would not see it. So, all right.
And not only is it a baking sheet that you're putting it on, but there's parchment on that sheet too as well, correct?
Yes. So it's basically it's a small, very simple one, right?
I'd call that grease-proof paper.
Exactly. Probably that works. And last, but you can start having fun with that, right? So you can do different shapes.
I love the fact that you brush it off. I'm hoping it's not the same brush you use for your dustbin in the kitchen.
No,
I was about to say that, bro.
At least mine is a dedicated one.
It looks like one you clean the floor with, Bertrand.
No, that's anyway. You're not gonna eat it, right?
Oh yeah, of course we're making it with somebody else.
Right.
I hope they're not watching.
All right. You see, pretty simple, right? We're all set now. And this
Now we have
now,
3 different baguettes on the baking sheet.
what we're gonna do now is basically leave that alone for an hour and 40 minutes. And just if you do that home, think
I saw you cover it with a cloth. Is that
Yep.
a dry cloth? Is that a
It's
damp
dry.
cloth?
It's dry. The idea is that you don't want if it needs to be covered, because if it's not, then the air could dry it on the surface, and we don't want that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
An hour and 40 minutes,
But I'm hungry now.
and then we can do a little bit of cleaning. So that's basically, shaping your deal. So is it going to be, so first of all, you divide, is it going to be a single transaction? Is it going to be multiple transactions? Do we need a point of, do we need some proof? Do we need to make some proof before we actually go for it? And then how we're going to structure the deal moving forward, basically.
So shaping is like adaptability. Adjustments may be needed based on factors like humidity or oven temperature. And in sales, flexibility is key to adapting strategies based on client feedback and market changes.
Yes, indeed. And of course, we do have a trick here again, because an hour and 40 minutes was not fitting into our format today. So I've prepared some baguette earlier. As you can see,
the magic of television.
After an hour and 40 minutes, it looks very different, right? Which is good.
So this is the yeast starting to ferment and expand.
This has expanded. There are two times or two stages in the fermentation process. So the first one is before division. And the second one is after division. So once and again, that's interesting. So once you've shaped the deal, then there is again some time to get to the point where it's really ready to sign, right? Signing.
And again, for our audio-only audience, on screen we have a baking sheet with 3 baguettes that were prepared an hour and 45 minutes ago.
Exactly. All right, so I'm talking about signing. So here we're really very close to baking these baguettes. So what I'm going to do is, because I like this, I just put a little bit of flour on top.
You've got a sifter.
I'm using you can use a how do you call that?
A sieve.
How do you call this for tea?
That's a tea strainer.
You can also use a tea strainer. And what you need now is a razor blade.
Oh.
Okay. That's the dangerous part, but that's your signature. And this is basically, that's the signature of the baker. So we have two options here. Either we go for the classic baguette. I'm going to do one. So we just go 1, 2, 3.
So Bertrand is now scoring the first baguette with the razor blade.
You could also do it on one go.
Okay.
So you can basically do and then I'll do the polka as well, which is this, okay? And we're done.
Now, will that impact the flavor at all, or
it will impact the shape? It will not impact the flavor, but it will impact the shape. So I'm now ready to put that into the oven, which I'm going to do right now. Okay. There we go.
Interesting. You remove it from the baking sheet, but leave it on the parchment paper.
So just so that everybody knows, I don't know if you can listen to me.
We can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, perfect.
So this is now going at 240 degrees. And then I'm also adding this. This.
What's that?
That's a glass
White
of water. So
when you say adding, you mean simply putting it in the oven next to the bread?
So in your oven, I don't know what the plate. There's a curved plate at the back end of my oven, and I put water in it because steam is responsible for the crunchiness of the bread.
Right.
Color and crunchiness. So you want some steam. You need some steam. Of course, professionals are they just need to press a button and then there's plenty of steam which comes into the oven. I don't have a professional oven, so unfortunately I need to do that. But that works pretty well, by the way.
I have an American oven. I don't think there's a channel to put water in.
Yes, put your dog's bowl in it, Rob.
Yes.
Well, otherwise you just put you put a bowl in it, and that also works.
In an
So
American,
we now have 19 minutes, 12 plus 7. Hopefully that fits with our schedule, which is basically baking. So as you can see, pretty straightforward process, actually.
I am definitely going to do this over the weekend. Definitely.
I am definitely not. This is
A question about the yeast.
Yeah.
So the yeast, is it kind of like those little spheres of baker's yeast, or is it? Do you make a yeast liquid?
No, you need fresh yeast. So you need something like that. Sorry. Like that.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
That's the fresh one.
and that's a cube.
And that's alive, isn't it? It's yeast that's alive.
Yes.
So you basically grate that onto the.
Or you divide it. So I think in that recipe there was 5 grams of that. So you also need, if you can turn back you can also need this. You're also gonna need this.
What's that? A cassette player?
That's something that usually is used by a different type of professionals. But this is a how do you call it?
Yes.
A weighting. How do you call that?
Scales.
Yeah.
A scale. Thank you so much. A scale.
Yes, you used for weighing other.
But that's a precision scale, right? So that's
Right.
useful for yeast and salt. Because back to what you were saying earlier, Rob, precision is absolutely key in this. There is no room for, how can I say that? Well, you can start adding more water. You can start doing things like that. But actually, the only thing you add is water most of the time, because you want a certain quality of dough. But salt, flour, and yeast are things that you need to be quite precise with, as well as temperature.
And from a sales
I wrote a
perspective,
blog on that. I wrote a blog on temperature.
and from a sales perspective, it is very much like that, isn't it? That we've gone through that process of bonding with the client. We've gone through the process of demonstrating and then we usually hit a process that we need to go through in terms of, maybe there's a procurement process that has to go through. Maybe there's a contractual process, and we have to, and those, and that has to be accurate, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. Actually, the accuracy of your prep work will actually drive how well you go through that process. Yeah, perfectly true. Let me see. Just check. Looks pretty good so far. All right. Yes. Of course, if we go, so that was I talked about time and obviously, you could think about. Not all customers will require you to spend a lot of time and effort. It depends on your market, of course, but all will very much enjoy your own personality. I think Albert is my personal brand. It gives a special taste. Actually, it's almost like there's a bit of honey. There are notes of honey in the bread. This is something that you can't mimic, right?
So how did you come across Albert?
Well,
I will try to mimic it. I will make a sourdough starter with beer, because that sounds absolutely fantastic. But I think
it's a burden. It's a burden, Adam. Just so that
you got to keep feeding it, mate. You got to keep feeding it.
Yeah, if it hadn't been for
I think you've got dogs, right? You've got a dog.
My mum was ill. If it hadn't been for that, and I had been away, I had my sourdough starter that I started during lockdown, and it was still the same one, but I had to let it had to let it pass away. So we had a burial in the garden, obviously, because George, my sourdough starter, died. But what I was going to say is that Tim said at the very beginning that one of the great things about going to France is going to the boulangerie first thing in the morning and getting that freshly baked baguette, and you hold it up, and there's the wonderful smell, and there's the wonderful kind of crunch as you turn it. And one of the things that I notice whenever I go to somewhere warm, so Italy or France or wherever it may be, that the food is better than everywhere else. And the reason it's better than everywhere else is that it has two things. It's fresh, like you're thinking, and it's simple, like you need to make the presentation to the client. And I think that, we joke about, dough as a metaphor for sales, but actually it's so true, isn't it? You go there, and often you go to a restaurant in one of the cities, and the food is very nice, but it's overly complex. The flavors are very complicated. It's quite difficult to unpick what's going on within the food. And you go somewhere simple. You go to have a pizza in Italy, where it's literally just dough, tomatoes, cheese, a couple of sprigs of basil, and it's just like
and pineapple.
and it's better than any pizza you get, which has got all of these different toppings on. And baguette, salt, yeast, flour, water, and it is the best bread. And it's just the simplicity of that you can really taste all of those ingredients, and it's all about the preparation and the execution of that, isn't it?
Yeah, that's perfectly true, and it's interesting because there is a cultural difference between the Italian and the French when it comes to the way they actually build dough. So if you're French, you start with a kilogram of flour. If you're Italian, you start with a liter of water, and that basically gives you a very different mindset, right? So we add water to flour in France. The Italian actually add flour to water. So the way they look at the texture of the dough is through making it more. It's very different, right? And you can see, because at the end of the day, when it comes to making a 24 hours preparation baguette with 75% of water, so 750 grams of water for a kilogram of flour, you can't touch it with your hands. It's really sticky. So it's quite a complex product to manipulate. So what we've done here is kind of the starter, the starting point. It was only 68%, right? So, and it makes I can tell you, every single percent after 68 makes a significant difference on the way you can manipulate you can even shape the baguette. So, and when you think about the way the Napolitan pizza, for instance, with big, the big tour, the big border, the big crispy border, absolutely outstanding. There's a lot of water in this.
So this starting with the flour in France and starting with the water in Italy, is that why Italian bread and indeed Italian food is so much better than French food?
Yes, yes, of course. But they add an additional ingredient, which makes it very different. Olive oil, and we don't use that.
Yeah, I was interested about that actually, because when I was making sourdough bread, I always put some olive oil into the sourdough as I was making up the dough. So do you ever put anything else in? Do you ever put an additional ingredient like that?
Olives.
Yeah, so olive oil or butter or cream or something like that.
There are recipes with butter, but they are. Sorry, I'm just there are recipes with butter. There are recipes with cereals. Actually, quite a lot with cereals. You can put anything in the dough, basically. It's up to you to. You can create your own bread. That doesn't. The basic recipe remains the same. What you need to. So you were saying, I think earlier, it's a learning. It's a learning path. But it's a learning path, or is it helping you to relax? Actually, it's more than that. It's almost a learning path on yourself, because you are. The way you progressively get to the point where you actually are creating something that you like, and that you
So,
enjoy
like
sharing.
with sales, then you wouldn't customize it, the approach, adding syrups, adding butter, or so on, until you have the basic foundation in place.
Yes, of course. Yeah, perfectly right. There are things that you need to, like in any, I would say, in any discipline. There are things that you need to master before you do your own stuff, right? I think the selling is a job. It's a discipline. It's something that you. It's not something you wake up one day and you say, you know what, I'm a great seller. That doesn't, that may happen, but these are the lone wolves. We know them, and they are not necessarily the best team members, right? Yeah.
And just on a personal note, Bertrand, when you do this, is this something like meditation for you, where you're very much in the moment and you're not thinking about anything else, and this is just like relaxation for you because there's no worries, you're just kneading and you're just doing whatever you need to do?
Exactly. I'm here. I'm nowhere else. I'm 100% focused on. It's not necessarily focused, but aligned. I'm in the moment. That's right. There is a bit of meditation around this. That's perfectly right.
I appreciate the very prescriptive approach that you had to this. It is a precise amount of ingredients. There are exacting steps. I will admit, I got intimidated when you were talking about kneading the dough, and sometimes it takes 2 times and sometimes it takes 3. Well, which is it? I need the answer. I need the prescription. How does one get from learning to experienced? How do you get through that? Is there a set number that you would expect, and then you realize, oh, maybe more, maybe less?
Yeah, usually you start with 3. So you've got first kneading. So you do a first part, first 3 minutes kneading, then wait 10 minutes, then the second one, wait 10 minutes, then the third one, wait 10 minutes. That is the recipe, basically. But then, depending on the quality of your ingredients, 2 might be enough. So if you go for organic and you've got the right source, then with the flour I use today, 2 is more than enough. Even 1 could have done the job. Right. So there is and interestingly enough, while everybody goes for is changing recipes to actually introduce automation, and always more automation. There is a chunk of true professional bakers who are actually doing this with their hands and going back, and they do 2 batches a day, and that's it. There's one in Toulouse, by the way, who's quite famous. The guy does 2 batches a day. You're there, good for you. You're not there, too bad. And that's quite of an interesting approach, I would say. and completely different approach, disruptive approach to that. Of course, it's more expensive, but there are
As quality often is.
exactly. Yeah, you need to figure out what is it that you want to eat, and that actually becomes more and more of a challenge. To be honest, nowadays, I don't want to sound like the old guy in the Muppet Show, but that's sometimes you need to know what you want, right? So, well, right now, I think we're almost good to go. Yeah, it looks pretty good.
So to recap what I heard you say, they're quality results. The ultimate goal in both baking and sales is to achieve a high quality result. A perfectly baked baguette and a successfully closed sale both provide satisfaction and pave the way for future success.
Exactly. And we are a little bit less than a minute to the time, so it's actually starting to look quite good in there. So we'll see the differences between the various how do you say scars?
Scoring.
Scoring. The scoring. Sorry, that's nothing to do.
No worries.
Well, it was close, but
Yes.
No, but I think one of the things that's been really interesting about this is that, and I know that you left it to prove an hour and 3/4 earlier in the day, but the actual amount of preparation time and time you've been working on this has been actually quite small, hasn't it? You started with the flour, you mixed it, you left it for 10 minutes, and we chatted. You needed it, you left it for 10 minutes, you needed it, and then you've got the long break, and then you put it in the oven. Job done.
Exactly, and you can do that a complete night, overnight, which is what I do for my my favorite one. Let me get that out of the oven.
So Bertrand's just getting the bread out of the oven. He's got like a pizza, like someone gets a pizza out of pizza spade, whatever they're called. Oh my God. They look wonderful.
So this is it, right? So
look at that.
Wow.
The different
break one, Bertrand, so we can see inside
and hear it.
Yeah.
Pretty well. Hear it. Let me just take something because it's pretty hot actually.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right. So and then open it.
Now that one there in the middle, that's the one you're going to ship to the US, right?
This one?
And the other one can go to the UK.
I don't know if can we see it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then let me open it. Not sure. Let's see what the result is.
Oh, that noise.
We don't do that.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Just cut it in half and sharing it with us.
So what's it taste like, Bertrand?
Sorry?
Taste it.
It's really hot here. It's
okay.
We need a few minutes, but that's really it. So again, I could not believe I would do that today, but I'm glad we did that together.
What you should have done, of course, is that during the first proofing, you should have made some butter. Churn some butter, shouldn't you? And then you could have put it on your bread.
Yeah, absolutely. I could have done that. But that was a great hour spent today with you guys.
Thank you so much.
That was fantastic.
That was really fascinating.
Yes.
Absolutely brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Good.
That was a fun experiment, and I'm glad to have been a part of it. If you have something to say, if you have something to share, we want to hear from you. Scan the QR code on screen or visit us at digitaldownload.live and fill out the Be Our Guest application form. On behalf of all of the panelists, thank you for being a part of today's show. This was an exciting experiment, Bertrand, and I'm so glad that
Yeah.
you stepped up and did that for us. Thank you.
Thanks,
Brilliant.
Bertrand.
Thank
That
you
was
so much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all, and we'll
Bravo.
see you next time.